What's up, guys? So I was not going to do a Lomachenko-Rigondeaux rant video because I just didn't feel that the Cuban deserved that energy from me. You know, he's not worth my energy. We've already spent more time talking, tweeting, writing, and arguing about the guy over the last few years than he really deserves. But ask and you shall receive. Here it is. First of all, can we stop calling Lomachenko, or Lomachenko? I've heard all these weird names. I don't know where people are getting the extra N from. Some people are putting an I in there. It's a pretty easy name to say. Say it with me. Vasyl, and I know that's not his original first name. Vasyl is his American name. Lomachenko. Lomachenko. It's very easy. There's some hard names out there, particularly these Thai fighters and some of the Slavic fighters. There's some difficult names. This one's very, very easy. Lomachenko. Okay, now that we got that out of the way. So last night, Lomachenko dominates Rigondeaux over 6 rounds. And this is what I saw. I saw the first round was a feel-out round. I don't even want to call it competitive. It was a feel-out round. By the second round, Lomachenko was in control. In rounds 3 through 6, he absolutely dominated Rigondeaux, but it was more than that. He outclassed him. He even toyed with him at times. It wasn't even competitive. It was all Rigondeaux could do to survive. And he tried everything he could do to survive, including some dirty, nasty tricks. He didn't just hold. He grabbed Lomachenko's hands, both of them, pinned him down, and pulled him. And that's an old school trick. If you pull a dude's arms back like that and he's not tense and he's not ready, you could jack up the ligaments in the shoulder, the elbows. You can, get something aggravated, twisted, pulled. That's an old school trick. He was grabbing Vasyl and pulling him back into the ropes. So when people talk about the weight advantage being this big difference and there was this huge strength advantage for Lomachenko, that's not what I saw. Anytime Rigo wanted to hold him, and not just hold him, but yank him towards him, he was able to do that. Even Rigondeaux himself, after the fight, said, yeah, it really wasn't the size difference in the fight. That really wasn't what caused him distress. So it wasn't just that, though. Rigondeaux actually went low a few times. He held the back of Lomachenko's head at one point and tried to punch him. Some of the tricks he's gotten away with other fighters, but Loma wasn't having it. And this goes back to his second pro fight with Orlando Salido, where there was learning on the job there, right? He lost that fight, I understand that, and I've talked about that fight in detail before, and there's a lot of gray area and fine print in between the bold print, gray area in between the black and white. It's not just a loss. A lot of you guys that just want to go on BoxRec and see a loss and then be like, oh, this Orlando Salido guy has all these losses and he beat Lomachenko? Oh, he's overrated. He's nothing. Guys, there's a lot more to it than that. You got to start overrating or stop overrating losses so much. Be it as it may, loses that fight to Salido, but learns against the dirtiest fighter of this last generation. And as much as I love Salido and as many great moments as he gave us, he was absolutely the dirtiest fighter in boxing and cheated more than anybody. He made Andre Ward look clean as far as his fighting style, right? So Loma learned from that fight. He learned not to just let a dude wrestle with him and get nasty, but you got to get nasty back. And we saw that a few times last night. In fact, I think it was after the 5th round, Loma slapped Rigondeaux after the bell, causing the ref to warn him, which he should have. Steve Willis should have warned him for that. That's a foul. But it was a love tap. It was just, hey man, stop what you're doing. That's the kind of nastiness that we should have seen from Sergey Kovalev against Andre Ward in their rematch earlier this year that we did not see. Instead, Sergey just capitulated. Well, we've seen Vasyl develop that pro game since that loss to Orlando Salido. So in that loss to Salido, he learned more. What did Vasyl do to the very next fight? He fought Gary Russell Jr., right? Who had, I think, 24 fights at that time, but had not fought anybody at the level of an Orlando Salido. So in those 12 rounds with Salido, even though he lost, Lomachenko had learned more and grown more in those 12 rounds than the 20-some-odd fights Gary Russell Jr. had fought. And what did he do? He goes out there and dominates Gary Russell Jr., who was an elite-level talent in this sport. In 2019, Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder are going to fight. And we're going to be having the same discussion then. And we're going to be talking about the 10 or 11 rounds AJ spent with Vladimir Klitschko and how those rounds, it was, I think, 11 rounds. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was 10 or 11 rounds that he spent with Klitschko are more valuable than the 36 some odd fights of Deontay Wilder's pro career. But anyway, back to Lomachenko-Rigondeaux. Look, let's talk about the injury. Apparently, Rigondeaux hurt his left hand, southpaw fighter, right? Hurt his left hand, so his strong hand. In the second round, he says it was the quote-unquote top of his hand, meaning his knuckle, one of his knuckles that he hurt. Here's the thing. Didn't complain to the corner after the second round, third round, fourth round, or fifth round. He waits till after the sixth round to complain to his corner. If you hurt your hand that early in the fight, so much that it was affecting the way you fought, you tell your corner. You let your corner know. And Bernardo Osuna for ESPN was hanging out in that corner and translating for the ESPN commentary. Didn't mention it once. In fact, he didn't even know what was going on right after the sixth round when the fight was stopped. It took him a few minutes to catch up and everything, right? Joe Tessitore hadn't heard anything. He just thought Rigondeaux quit in the stool for no apparent reason. So I don't know if I'm buying the injury, guys. And if you look after the sixth round, the trainer in Rigondeaux's corner was playing with his right glove, jostling, shaking around, playing with the right glove. And then apparently it was the left knuckle. Further, Rigondeaux has been one of the most active fighters on Twitter, tweeting all kinds of memes, all kinds of jokey, funny stuff, right? He's actually a fun follow on Twitter. Posts photos all the time. You just got injured in the highest profile fight of your career. So you were so hurt that you couldn't continue. But you don't post a photo of your injury? You don't take a quick photo on your cell phone of the knuckle and post that for everybody to see? Most fighters, and we've seen fighters do this who have been injured in fights recently, guys. There's a million examples we could go to. It's one of the first things they do. It's what Twitter and Instagram and all that is for, right? To communicate with your fans, your followers. So if you have an injured hand, highest profile fight of your career, the fight you've been calling out Lomachenko for years. You've wanted this fight. You said he's ducking you, etc., etc. You get it. You have an injury so bad you can't continue, even though you only landed 15 punches in the fight, only 5 power punches, but more about that in a second. And you don't post a photo? Now, it hasn't been 24 full hours yet, but if you're that hurt to where you're going to the hospital to get it checked out and get x-rays and everything, no photo. Guys, I got to call BS on the injury. Maybe there was some sort of injury there, but I'm calling BS on it being significant enough for him to stop the fight. What I saw was a guy being so thoroughly outclassed and dominated and toyed with and, quite frankly, embarrassed that he was looking for a way out. And I think some of the fouling and mauling and grappling and all that and the low blows was a first way of looking for a way out. But Steve Willis really didn't start really getting in his ass until the 6th round where he finally took a point. You could make the argument he could have took a point in the 4th or 5th round. So it was going to take a couple more rounds of getting embarrassed for Rigondeaux to get a DQ through fouling. I think he knew at the end of that 6th round that there was no answers. There was nothing he could do. No amount of clinching, pulling, bending over, mauling, grappling, low blows, none of it was going to help. This dude was just better. So, injury. And again, I'm not saying that there's no injury at all. I'm saying that the injury wasn't significant enough for him to quit. He was looking for a way out. And if you can't see that, you're blind. You're either blind by hate or by undying allegiance to a fighter who quite frankly has no passion for what he does. He does it because he's good at it. He doesn't do it because he wants to be great and service his fans who are paying for him, paying to watch him fight. And just a week or so ago, we saw Miguel Cotto in his last pro fight 5-6 rounds with a torn left bicep. You guys, I tweeted out the photo where you could see his left bicep rolled up. It was rolled all the way up here. It was a gruesome injury. And he was getting beat. And he was actually buzzed and hurt several times against Saddam Ali, but he finished the fight. We've seen boxers fight on through so many injuries. Hand injuries are a part of the sport. They happen all the time. It's boxing, and guys fight through it. And for Rigondeaux, if you really hurt a knuckle on his left hand, you're a southpaw, you still got your jab hand, you can at least keep Vasyl off of you supposedly with that right hand. So I don't want to hear it that you had to quit. I think that he just knew he was beat. And that goes back to what I wanted to say about Lomachenko's fighting style as a pro. He's not a pressure fighter, but he's learned how to pressure guys with his movement, with his footwork, with his busyness. He keeps that right hand out there, he sets you up and boom, taps you, gets off to the side, right? And it's just repeat, repeat, repeat. He's here, then he's here. He's here, then he's here. I think it wears dudes down mentally, emotionally. It might not wear him down physically. He doesn't beat the fight out of guys the way we saw last night. If you watch the HBO card in that main event, Orlando Salido had the fight beaten out of him by Mickey Roman. That's not what Vasyl does. He wears them down mentally and makes them want to quit. I think this is the fourth fighter now that he's made quit. Crazy, right? Let's see, what else? The ratings. Now, we don't have the official numbers yet, but apparently, from what I've heard, this is going to be the second highest rated ESPN boxing broadcast of the year behind the Pacquiao-Horn fight. Now, maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. The bad is Rigondeaux stuck the joint out. The good is maybe some new sets of eyeballs got to see Vasyl Lomachenko and his dominance, his brilliance, and they'll want to see it again. You know, so maybe that's a good thing. For Rigondeaux, he had only fought one other elite level fighter in his career, Nonito Donaire. And I want to say that was back in 2012. Maybe it was 2013, I don't know. I know it was 4 or 5 years ago. And he won that fight clearly. He dominated early. But let's be honest here. Donaire made a push late, made it competitive, and dropped Rigondeaux. To see the difference in that fight to this fight, to see how thoroughly outclassed he was against Lomachenko. Guys, I don't care what weight it was at or when they ever fought. Because of styles, Lomachenko is always going to beat Rigondeaux. He's just a better fighter. That's it. And you could talk about the Salido fight, second pro fight. Maybe if he fought Rigondeaux in his second pro fight, he would have lost. I don't think so. Because that was an example, the Salido fight. Ooh, Salido cheated, and, you know, I won't rehash that for the millionth time, but Lomachenko was fighting a welterweight that night. And the weight absolutely affected that fight because of fighter styles. Salido needs that extra weight to do some of the dirty tactics he does for it to be effective, for it to work. Rigondeaux, that wouldn't have mattered because of styles, the more amateur style and sticking and moving on the outside. Rigondeaux likes to have the distance and use his long arms. So absolutely would have been a different fight. And I don't care if it was Lomachenko's second pro fight. The guy who fought Orlando Salido would have beat Guillermo Rigondeaux, period. So I don't want to hear the weight made a difference, whatever. There was a rehydration clause. Lomachenko couldn't swell up too much after the fight. The second day, the day of the fight, he weighed in at 137. So it wasn't as if there was this huge welterweight or something in there against Guillermo Rigondeaux. Obviously, Loma was the bigger guy, but this fight came down to skills, and that's what I've been saying the whole time, breaking it down. This fight came down to skills, and Loma's skills were better. That's it. So yeah, let me see. I'm just looking at my little notes here of what I wanted to rant about. Pound for pound. I'll leave it after this. Pound for pound. Now, a lot of people are going to say that Lomachenko is the new pound for pound guy. The Lomachenko haters are going to say, oh, I beat up on an old man. It was two weight classes below, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be the two sides of the coin, right? In my eyes, at this point, it's between Terrence Crawford, Vasyl Lomachenko, and Gennady Golovkin. And I'm going to do a pound for pound list, year-end pound for pound list video here in the coming weeks, and I'll talk about it more in detail. But it comes down to what you prefer. It comes down to how much do you include the amateur accomplishments in the mix? How much do you weigh out dominating one division versus winning titles in multiple divisions, right? There's all this that we have to take into account. So I'll talk more about that in the future, but it's clear that those are the three top guys in my opinion. So that's it right now. For Guillermo Rigondeaux, I don't ever need to see him again. And for those of you who have been talking about boogeymen, you know, racist that, and unsophisticated fans that can't appreciate technical brilliance and slickness, you know, unforgivable slickness, all these things, right? The boogeyman is Rigondeaux, and he got exposed last night. He got exposed at the theater at Madison Square Garden as the first time he faced real, true, tough opposition. He was in there with where he wasn't having his way. And yes, I know he's been dropped a few times, but those were kind of flash knockdowns. He's been dropped. He was still in there against lesser opposition. He was able to rebound from being dropped. He was in there against a guy who was better in every way. And he tried a bunch of different things. None of it was working. And he knew that. And so he looked for a way out. He's been exposed now. And for all of you who have been crying about the plight of Rigo, he doesn't get any chances. And yeah, fighters at 122 pounds did duck him. Guys moved up in weight to avoid fighting him. I get it. He took a challenge here, and guess what? He got exposed. That's it. This guy's had chances. You could complain about Bob Arum, you could complain about HBO, but I was there ringside at the Cotto Canelo fight in Vegas, and in the co-main, it was Guillermo Rigondeaux against Drian Francisco, a journeyman. And this is a guy he should have dominated and stopped, or at least made quit. Right? The way Loma does to guys he can't physically stop with his power. And he couldn't do it. He stunk the joint out. It was terrible. And that was on a major pay-per-view, the biggest fight of that year, second to Mayweather-Pacquiao. And he stunk it out. He's done this multiple times. He's made horrible business decisions. And last night, he just made the last horrible business decision of his entire career. He could go away now. No need to ever see him again.